What's up, folks? Welcome to Ichabod. I'm your host, Be Good, and we are doing conversations with Christians. So if you're looking to see a former Christian talk about issues of faith in the Bible and Christianity with a current Christian, you're in the right place. So come on into the chat, do what we like to do here. That is, greet somebody in reason's name, and let's get ready to talk about it. So I got a great guest. Actually, this guest is a friend of a previous guest. So you guys will hear about that in a second. But before we get there, come on in, say what's up, and let's get ready to dive into this discussion. If you're here, say hey, so we know who you be. Yes, and there's a reason why I like having these conversations. Personal reasons I have, but I actually have some additional reasons tonight. Just before I jumped on here, I saw a social media post from a lawmaker whose initials are MTG. I won't say anymore, but she is calling for a national divorce. She says, I don't want to have anything else to do with people on the left. I'll pray for them, but I don't want to have anything else to do with them at all. And so if we are moving in a direction where people are going to start severing, even if it's peacefully, though there are people calling for a more, less peaceful version of severing. I think now more than ever, we actually need to be talking to each other. And so we're going to try to do that tonight. Christian and non-Christian talking about an issue that could be divisive, but we're going to see, what happens. Can we get on anything close to the same page? And even if that page is just, hey, I'm a human being, you're a human being, we're all trying to figure this thing out together. Can we just recognize each other's humanity and take it from there? So that's what we'll be doing. So what's up, folks in the chat? Darrell Williams, salutations. Sharon Good, what's happening? Mo Wheat, good to see you, fam. Pardon me. Come on into the chat. Greet somebody in reason's name. I see former guest Joshua Crease in the chat. And there is actually a connection between Joshua Crease and our guest tonight, which we will talk about momentarily. Hammers over strikers, what's up? Ambassador LPW. I'm curious what the LPW stands for, but you don't have to put that in the chat if you don't want to. Give a shout out to all these folks here. So what's up if you are a Patreon supporter? I want to send a big shout out to you. Thank you for rocking with the channel, for showing your love, and I'm going to be showing it back by continuing to do these shows. Yo, Darnaya in the house. For those who don't know, you ought to know. Darnaya is, dare I say, the better half of our friend Durante Lamar. So great to see you. Yeah. So let's get ready to do this. And just so you know, so tonight is Monday. In a couple of days, Wednesday night, we'll be back on. And I'm going to have a slew of guests with me because you know what's happening in this country. And my timeline is full of people that I really am struggling to understand. And I'm going to get some people to help me understand. So Wednesday, we're going to be talking about Black Christians and their relation to the ideals and values and statements of one, the late Charlie Kirk. So we're going to have a bunch of former guests, former Black Christians will be popping onto the show. So you will see me with some all-stars, some Ichabod all-stars on on Wednesday night. So, all right, with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring our guests into the chat. So would you please help me welcome Damian Bareham. What's going on?
Hey guys, how's it going? Oh,
Great
man.
to have you on the channel. So you and Josh Crease, y'all get it in. You guys are both up north.
Yes, sir. We are from Calgary, Alberta. Originally, that's where we met. He moved down to Lethbridge, and I'm still his hairstylist. So he comes up every once in a while, and I give him a haircut.
Okay. Okay. He's not your
But
hairstylist.
no, sir. No, sir. But yeah,
Okay.
we've known each other for quite some time, and we have went from just casual acquaintanceship to like hardcore like debating for like a decade, and we're basically on the other side of that, where we're just like kind of like what you said, like we're just two people, we love Jesus, and the differences matter way less than they used to matter.
Okay.
But yeah, and now I consider him like one of my best friends, if not my best friend, and yeah, we really get along. And I
Did you
really enjoy
guys
it.
meet in something that was Christian oriented or just in life?
Yeah, we originally met at a church where the pastor of that church was also a hip hop artist, and
Okay.
he connected with that guy because of hip hop, and I was just
Right.
he was the guy who married us, and so it just all like it was kind of
Okay.
house church deal at the time.
All right.
Yeah, that's kind of how
Okay. So you said you and him have had hardcore debates for 10 years about things in Christianity.
Yeah, I think if you could put us, it's like in terms of the essentials, we agree. In terms of every other non-essential issue, I think we literally just take opposite sides on everything. And so it's actually been a fascinating journey just to watch how two people who can strongly disagree can actually just respect each other's journey, to be like, listen, I know you're not stupid. I know you're looking at the same information that I'm looking at. You just don't agree.
So I'm wondering if Josh sets you up, because the fact that the two of you disagree, I wonder if he's like, yeah, Brady didn't get my number, but I bet you he'll get Damien's number. Or does he think you'll get my number better than he did? I wonder what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, I know I approach things very differently. I think differently. I just approach everything very differently. So I do think it'll be just interesting how I would respond to any questions or anything.
Gotcha.
I'm curious for myself too. To be honest, to tell you the truth, this is my first public discussion and my first online discussion, like really ever. So this is new to me. It's not that I haven't had conversations at like Tim Hortons or whatever, right? But this is the first. And this is a little bit like, I know you don't know me from anybody, but I was listening to Cross Movement back in like 1998. Like,
wow.
Way back when I was 18, man. And I really connected with you and the Ambassador most in terms of your lyrical content, in terms of your cadence and how you deliver it. And I was like, And so I was really influenced by that. So this is in some small way like meeting one of your heroes.
Wow.
But then also it's an emotional thing for me too, just because it's like now we're from different perspectives, and it's just like wrestling through like how to deal with that, right? And so
you got to talk to me about something I think will be interesting for the viewers.
Yeah.
When we were just setting this up, you were introducing yourself. Hope you don't mind me sharing this part. You said as you've gone through your journey, if I remember correctly, you had to go through deconstruction about 4 times, you said. Is that right?
Yeah. So deconstruction in various fashions, but like where you have to basically tear down everything you've ever thought about something and rebuild it from scratch. Does that make sense? Where you've had a particular paradigm and you're just like, my paradigm no longer works. And certain circumstances have come to the fore where everything just collapses and you're in a state of insecurity and fear and you're grasping at straws. And then you're just like, okay, like reset, rebuild. And like that happened. Yeah. I mean, I could give you the brief 5-minute if you want. Like,
I would love to hear at least maybe 2 of the times and issues that caused you to have to deconstruct and then rebuild. And what I also would like to hear is, and why, after collapsing so many times, why rebuild?
That's a really good question. I'm not so sure I'll be able to satisfactorily answer that, but we'll find out. Okay. So I grew up in church, but my mom was the only one who went to church in my family and my extended family. So I grew up going to church sometimes twice a week, and like just immersed myself in it and really loved it. Like just I clicked right away. Whereas me and my sister grew up in the same house, same church experience. She's not feeling it, never has. But for me, I was in. I was like 100% in, and immersed myself into church culture, immersed myself into theology. And then like first paradigm shift was when my former stepmom, she was a Jehovah's Witness, and she was like challenging me on stuff. And so like the first thing was like this religious paradigm to be like, is everything I was taught, everything I just totally drank in wrong? And so that was the first one. The second one was...
I'm sorry, real quick. Even in that one, did you think not only is everything that I've been taught wrong, did you also think, and is the Jehovah's Witness interpretation of their Bible, is that correct? Or did you think maybe if none of it's correct? What was your alternative to you being wrong?
Okay, so maybe I'll preface. When I was really young, I spent a lot of time alone. Like, didn't have very many friends, didn't really connect with my family very well. So I spent a lot of time like alone, walking, doing a lot of things. And so in those times, I really, really built like if you want to say it, like a really deep, personal, intimate, mystical type of connection with God. Okay. So for me, that was one of those things where I'm like, that has carried me. And so that part didn't waver. So when I got this information, it was just like, I immediately went like, am I wrong about how I think about you? Am I wrong about what the Bible says about you? Am I wrong about my assumptions? And so then you basically, you have to reset. You're like, okay, let's find out. Okay. I'm the kind of person of like, if I clean a room, I go into a room, it's a disaster. My impetus is to take everything and chuck it out of the room. Like get it all out and then assess and then reintroduce. So that's how I clean my house. That's also how I clean my mind and my internal, composition. I'm just like,
but now hold on, because even in that, like you would take everything out of the room and decide what needs to go back in.
Right.
But a minute ago, you just said, but because of that alone time you have with God, you were so locked in with God that you never wavered on that. So even in your taking everything out of the Christian room, you didn't take a belief in God out. You still kept that in the room the entire time, right?
Okay, so the best way I would describe this is he's the room. It's like for me that was the uncompromising part, and so there was that, and I just rebuilt. And how that particular journey went is I just dove into the Bible and read it from cover to cover slowly and carefully over and over and over again. And then she was like, nope, I'm pretty sure I'm right. The second fallout came with church culture, where I had this pristine view of church and everything. And then I just started to see human flaws, right? And like just the naivete was confronted with human reality. And so that just caused a whole other, like, can I trust Christians? And so coupled with that, there was like a church split. There was a whole bunch of craziness that went down. Coupled with that, during that same period of time, I wanted to write a book. I actually wrote it and didn't publish it. But I was writing this book, and basically I took everything in my mind that I ever believed about Christianity and I wanted to write this magnus opus, like kind of thing, like this big thing. And I'm like, well, everything I was taught is true. Of course it is. Like my pastor said so, and this teacher said so. And so I figured I want to be intellectually honest. So I'm just going to go look at all my research material and just get cross references and make a good bibliography. I was really naive. And I just wrote it all out. And then all of a sudden I was confronted by my own theological paradigms going, but okay, so we believe this, but I can't find that. We say we believe this thing, but on deeper investigation, it's not as clean as I've been taught. Upon investigation, and so pretty soon, I've got this church thing here and this theological paradigm, and they both kind of collapsed at the same time. But again, the Lord was this constant for me, even in that. So I was like, okay, I know you. I don't think I can trust Christian theology and Christians in general, actually.
Now, and did that doubt ever go as far as, okay, I know I've got this mystical connection, Christians and theology is questionable. Did you ever get to the point, at least in this particular paradigm, collapsing and rebuilding, did the Bible ever become questionable as well? Or was that just as solid as your mystical connection with the Lord?
Well, actually, the Bible actually became more solid for me because the more I studied it, the more it made sense. Like, actually. So it's funny. In all of these, to be honest, the Bible has never actually scandalized me. I feel like I've been able to look at it open eyes with all of the humanity and the mess and the formation history, and it's never really scandalized me. I've never really had issue with that. Maybe I'm just really adaptable. I don't know.
Okay.
But as a quick just segue into that, like that took a while to rebuild. I will quickly say that getting into Messianic Judaism actually helped me rebuild my relationship with God and the Bible and Christians in a different way, and it was really healthy. So for a while, I was very heavily influenced by Messianic Judaism. That helped me rebuild. The final one would be, I guess there's another one. Like arguing with Josh was actually a paradigm crusher because it was like I loved theology, and then just when you just argue ad nauseum, I'm like, is this even important? Like, if all this theology is forced to argue, it has no value. It has no value. And so that was another bit.
Okay.
But then
so the final one
was meeting Christians who I had known and loved later in life. Now they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, abandoning their faith. And smart people like me who think things through, who reason things, who do their research, and them abandoning that. It created such emotional turmoil for me. I think the difference for me, like, because for me, I'm just like, am I wrong about this? This is the one thing I've never wavered on. This is the one thing that's always been the constant. It's been the foundation. It's been the one reason I could rebuild. It's been the one anchor. And now this is being taken from me. And so I was really, really scared because I was just like, what's stopping me? I'm a smart guy. Like, what's stopping me?
Did you know what their issues were? Like what was causing, like what took it from them? And did you think that they had valid reasons, or was it just you respected their intellect, so you figured they must have valid reasons?
I think everybody, to be honest, I think everybody has what they would perceive as a valid reason. It just comes down to, honestly, it comes down to choice. Like we'll get into it later, but it's just like, there's a point in time where you can say, do I trust this? And then you just have to ask yourself that question and stare in the face and be like, do I or do I not trust this? Right? So the big thing for me, the biggest fear for me was because I had such an emotional connection to God, such an emotional connection actually to the scriptures, that I was afraid of my own unbelief. I was afraid of my own abandoning. I was just like, it terrified me. I was like, and I'm like, and you didn't stop them. You didn't stop them. You gonna stop me? I hope you would. I hope you would shut the door in my face. I'm like, you gonna let me walk away too? And it was offensive, actually. I was offended with God because you let other people walk away, and you didn't. And you might let me walk away.
Trust me, as someone who did walk away, and if there was ever any moments that I looked back, like, if this thing is real, you mean to tell me you let me walk away? You let me come all the way out here on this? You let me not just walk the plank, you let me jump. So I can relate to that feeling.
Yeah. So like I've heard a little bit of that from you, even your discussion with Josh. It's like, the truth is, I deeply sympathize with that whole process. When people talk about the emotional turmoil they go through, the intellectual turmoil, the scandals, the paradigms that had to change, like I sympathize with that. I really do. And that's one thing that's just one of those constants with me. I'm just like, yeah, well, to be fair, I'm not a Calvinist. I don't hold to the idea that like that whole paradigm, like perseverance of the saints and God's always got you and there's nothing you do. I seriously think from the day one to the day of the end, we all have choices to make, right? Now, God's grace can sustain you if you say yes. If you say no, I think he gives you the freedom. That's been my experience anyway. And so that's just the glossed version of it.
Yeah, good. That's good.
And so what it came down to, the day where I said, you know what, I'm sticking with this, is I reviewed my whole life. And then I was just like, so, because I was very sick when I was born, and doctors were like, this guy's not going to make it. If he makes it, he'll be brain damaged. Like, just write him off. I was 3 months early. And like back in the 80s, that you 50-50 shot, right? And it was like, okay, so where was science and atheism when I went through that? And the doctor said I wasn't going to make it, and then I did. Where was science and atheism when I was rejected by my peers and I got bullied and all that kind of stuff? Where was it then? Where was it when crazy stuff was going down in my household, alcoholic family, et cetera, et cetera? Where was all this then? And so I just started to review my whole life. And because someone would say, like, what would it take for you to abandon your faith in God? And I was like, we just have to rewrite my whole life story without him in it. And so just in reviewing my whole life, I was just like, he's been loyal to me. I have not sensed an entire day without this presence here, without the voice, without the comfort, without God in and around me. And it's like, that has never abandoned me. Why would I now abandon that because somebody just said, oh, here's the new atheist fad. Let's do this one. And all your friends who you're super intellectual, they're abandoning. It's like, maybe you should too. And after that, I was just like, you know what? I think I'm in. And that might not satisfy some people. And the reason it might not satisfy is probably because they're like, what about all this rational stuff? We can talk about all that. But for me, I think humanity is more than what we just process rationally. I think we are whole. We all process things based on our intellect and based on our emotions and based on our experiences. And we can pretend otherwise, but at the end of the day, all of that coalesces to make the decisions that we make, right? Does it rationally make sense? Does it logically progress? Does it feel right? Is it intuitive? Does my experience line up with it? Does it have explanatory value? And then we make decisions, right? And so for me, at the end of the day, it was, I know you might not like this. It's just the real me. It's just like, I really like God. I really like who he is. I love the Bible. Every time I read it, I am elated. And I came to read the scriptures and fall in love with the person of Yahweh. I have so much sympathy for who he is as the narrative progresses. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm on your team. I'm resolutely on your team. And so, like, for me, the fear of the Lord isn't so much being afraid of judgment. It's being afraid of being away from him. And so that's really what it came down to.
Wow.
Yeah, I felt like the Lord invested so much into me. I couldn't let that go. And I mean, wow. I've heard people mention, like, sunk cost fallacy. Are you saying this just because you put your life into it and just abandon this? Like, in a sense, I'm just like, no, I'll think about that, honestly. And I just weigh it and I'm just like, no, this isn't that. This is a deep, extended period of time relational aspect. And the best explanatory power is what I find in the scriptures for what I'm experiencing. And so if you look at New Age and you look at Islam and you look at Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormonism and et cetera, I'm like, these just don't compete. They don't seem to fit. So my worldview just kind of was like, nope, it's this. Now, that being said, how I then reconstructed and fleshed that out is very different. I'm not very dogmatic about a lot of things. I'm not sectarian. I could give two rips of a denominational whatever. I think if your speech and your actions are legit and you claim loyalty to Jesus and you put your trust in who God is and his capacity in you to make you new, we're brothers. Everything else is secondary.
I'm curious, if somebody's speech and actions are legit, but they don't put their trust in Jesus, then what?
Isn't that a quandary? Isn't that a quandary? It is. It is a real quandary because on the one hand, all throughout Scripture, God says, those who do it is right. I am pleased with them. Even C.S. Lewis in one of his books, actually it's the end of the Chronicles of Narnia, there's this guy who's
The Last Battle.
Yeah. So he's talking about, he's like all on for Tash. And like, he's like, what, are you the same? Like, I've been serving Tash my whole life. Like, are you telling me that you guys are the same? And Aslan's like, nah, man, it is not because we're the same. It's because we're different. And so even though you thought you were worshiping Tash, you were actually honoring me because your life and speech reflected that, you know? And so I don't know whether I fully agree with that. I'm just saying somebody thinks like this out there. And I'm like, that's worth considering. Is somebody's speech and actions lived out actually reverence for their creator? I don't know. On the other hand, okay, here's where I can't let this one go. Jesus is basically saying, if you truly want the path of life, there's actually nothing in and of your own strength that you can do to get there. If you really want life, you have to come through me who gives you life. Because if you think what you have is good, it goes all the way back to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's defining good and evil on your own terms. And the day you choose to do that, you will aim, you will miss, and you will bring death in your wake. And so that will be the byproduct of living that way is going to put you on a particular trajectory. And at the end, God is going to confirm that trajectory and says, I'll give you everything you wanted. Here you go. This is you get it all. I give you everything. I'll hand you over to everything you say you wanted. The problem is, I think everything we think we want, we may not like in the end. So it's a wrestle, and I'm not willing to throw it out and be like, like, I just got to be honest. Like, yeah, like there's loyalty to Jesus. This is no one comes to the Father through me. If you don't come through me, you don't have life. And yet God is way more merciful than I think we give him credit for. It's tough.
Last question I have for you. I appreciate you sharing all this, because I think even in you sharing what people get a chance to see, as if we don't know, because many of us were there, but what people get a chance to see is the realness and the sincerity with which you believe, and the emotional attachment that you have to what you found in the God that you worship, and just your unwillingness to do life without that. And that's just a real human sentiment that you can't hear that. And whatever the unbeliever, the former Christian would say about why they would not find that convincing, or why they would not find that compelling, I don't think anyone can hear what you're saying and say, I could never feel that way. I think any of us can feel that way and have felt that way. Yeah. And so I think that just helps to have that out there. The last question I'll ask you is, you said you and Josh, when it comes to the essentials, you agree, you guys are all on the same page. So what are those essentials? What do you believe, as you've deconstructed and rebuilt your house of faith several times?
Yeah.
What are the things that you actually believe? And I'll throw this question in now because I was going to save it, but you said the final time was when you saw these other people deconstructing or deconverting, the question I would have is not just what do you believe now in terms of your essentials, but how do you know that the last time was the last time that your house of faith is going to actually fall?
Well, to that last point, I don't know.
Okay.
The truth is I have not lived my life yet all the way. But I'm something deep down inside is pretty convinced that I'm going to be loyal to the Lord who's been loyal to me. And I'll be honest with you. When I watched you and Josh's talk, it actually put me through a little bit of a spin again. I was like, really? Again? You know what I mean? So like reevaluate again. Like, am I really right? Am I really sure? Do I really know? Are these things valid? Like, I still question. I always question, right? But I also find that true answers are found in questioning, because good questions, they resist immediacy. They make you be patient. They make you ask again and again the same questions because you keep asking it from a different perspective. And that process transforms you so that you become the kind of person who can receive the answer. So I sometimes I'm willing to just let questions sit without an answer. I like a shelf space. I got like this idea here, this idea here, this idea here. And on some of these, I'm like, no, that's my solid shelf. And this is I'll shift it around and move it as it needs to move shelf. You know what I mean? With my ideas.
So a question I think very similar to a question I asked Josh. Sometimes I think it's possible that we can have these questions and say, you know what? I need to sit with that for a while until I get an answer. But I guess the question I would have is,
what makes you think there's an answer?
Well, not what makes you think there's an answer. Right. What if you just don't want certain answers, so that you're going to let these things sit on the shelves as long as it takes, because you might have an answer, but you just don't like that one. And so you're waiting for something as opposed to looking at the answer that you actually have and saying, dang, this might actually be the answer, but it would actually put me back in that place of deconstructing again.
Yeah. So yeah, I have thought about that. So which response do you want first? Do you want the what I believe now, or do you want that particular question answered?
Since we're on this, let's go with that particular. Yeah. How do you know that you're not just holding off from answering questions because you don't like the answers?
The short answer is I don't find any of the criticisms adequate or sufficient. Not even a little. Like
but if you're putting them on the shelf because you don't have an answer, what's insufficient about that? Like, isn't that enough to make you say, well, if I can't answer that, maybe that means something? Like, so for instance,
it depends on what's on my shelf. Maybe what you think is on my shelf isn't even on my shelf. Maybe I just didn't think it was worth bringing back into the room. It could be like that. It could be like that. Okay. Like, for instance, like if anybody's going to push back against the scriptures, like for me, I've listened to enough pushback, and then I go and look back and I just assess, and I'm like, it doesn't feel weighty enough to make a major life choice on. It doesn't bear the same weight. I don't think I'm as scandalized by the Bible as some people are, and I think the reason is, now forgive me if this sounds like you, but I never put a lot of weight in theology about the Bible. I didn't start with the Bible as this is the inerrant, whatever authoritative revealed will of God for faith and practice. I was just like, what does the Bible say about itself? It's like, oh, it says it's a witness. It says it's useful for teaching, training, and building in righteousness. It says that it's God-breathed, and it says that it's an example for us. So like I came at it from just like, well, I just want to know what it says about itself. I want to be able to read it on its terms, ask its questions, get into its world, and let that inform me rather than me tell the Bible, this is what you have to be. And so I was willing and able to just look at formation history and be like, okay, it's messy. It's not simple. It's not clear cut. We can't just say A, B, C leads to D. It's like, it never didn't happen like that. But I can hold that and be like, okay, that doesn't take away from its value. In fact, it makes it more value. It makes God more sovereign. It makes him more amazing. And Yeah, it's like that's kind of where I'm coming at from there. But in terms of like the critiques that I've heard, I don't find they're coming from a place of genuine thought, but more as a reactionary element. I know it might sound offensive to some, but I almost feel like most of the skepticism that I see coming out, especially on the interwebs, is a reaction against what they used to believe. And now because they reject that, they feel it's almost a heroic duty to like evangelize in the opposite direction from the thing they felt either abused by, disillusioned by, or felt like they invested their life in and felt like they wasted something. And like, I got to make sure people don't go down that road because it messed me up and it's going to mess you up. And I got to preach the gospel of atheism, like, so to speak. You know what I mean? I just don't find it compelling. I appreciate what you're doing and I appreciate the tone with which you come, because I find that you at least have a listening ear, an even composure. You're actually asking me questions. So that's cool. I don't see that a lot. And so it's hard for me to go like, oh yeah, you just like completely lambasted everything. And you're like with the spirit of anger. Yeah, I'm totally going to sign up for that. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to sign up for that. But it's not that I don't take the objections seriously. It's just that I've listened to it. I've weighed it against what I already know and say, it's not enough. It doesn't give me enough information. It doesn't have the explanatory value. It doesn't have the emotional impetus. It's not, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where.
So then what are your essentials?
My essentials, God exists. Like, I would say God is the only thing that exists. He creates a space.
What do you mean?
I would say when he says I am, it means he is existence. He is existence. For anything to exist, God creates a space inside himself to make something else. It's like so I think that he is the source and ground of all being, everything that exists. I am starting to come to terms with the ancient Hebrew thought that there was no such thing as supernatural. They never believed in the supernatural. Everything that exists is because God exists. And what they call miracles is what the Hebrews called signs. So like everyday happenstance, the sun comes up, it goes down, the tide comes in, goes out. That happens because God exists. You breathe, you live because God exists. If God doesn't exist, you don't exist. And what we call miracles is God saying, hey, pay attention. I'm doing a specific thing for a specific reason. I want you to pay attention. So I would say, as a base paradigm, I believe God exists. And I believe he's the source and ground of all being. So I think that's essential.
So I'm just curious, when you say he's the only thing that exists, he makes space inside himself for things to exist. Those things exist not apart from him, but they are not parts of him. Or are you saying, no, everything that exists is also a part of God?
No. I'm not a panentheist. No, he creates I know it's a hard, and the truth is, I'm just trying to flesh this out in a way. I don't even know if I'm giving voice to it well, but it's like, if he is existence, there can't be anything outside of that. So in some weird sense, it's not like God creates outside of himself. There is nothing outside of himself. So it's like in a sense, he has to create space inside to create something other. And so that might not satisfy.
That language is a little that language is a little tricky, because when because what it does is it makes me want to ask questions about what are your views about God in terms of the omnis. Is God omnipresent?
Yes.
Or is God immaterial? Because can you be immaterial and be omnipresent?
I see what you're saying. Okay, so do I think God is a non-physical entity? Yes. I don't think he is a physical entity. So what I would say, if we're going to go in this route, the non-physical God creates the material world. But there's no place within that sphere where God isn't. Do you know what I mean?
So here's what I try to clarify this for folks on Facebook all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
Is omnipresence a attribute of God that only comes into existence once there are material properties for him to fill, or is God always omnipresent even before he creates anything? Because if he's omnipresent before he creates anything, that means he's everywhere there's a where to be. But if he hasn't created anything yet, how can he be omnipresent? So it's almost like you'd have to try to have your cake and eat it too, to say he's immaterial, that's who he is in his nature, but then also smuggle omnipresence into his nature before he's made anything to fill that space.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I'm trying to figure out why it's a quandary for you. It seems to work in my head. I'm like, it just works. I don't know.
If God before God makes because space is a thing, it's a creation, right?
Yeah.
So if God is omnipresent in his nature before he makes anything? And if so, what space is he filling to be omnipresent before he's made space?
Okay, help me understand. Are you basically taking omnipresence as a spatial thing?
No, all I'm saying is if by omnipresent you say he fills all space, that's the definition, right? Or all space is in him.
See, I guess
you could take it two ways. You could take it.
Omnipresence just means everywhere, always, all the time, in the invisible dimension.
Say that again.
Everywhere, always, all the time.
Stop right there. Everywhere, right?
Okay.
If God is omnipresent in his essence, then that means before he's made an anywhere, he would still be everywhere. But where is there for him to be before he's made anywhere? How can you be omnipresent before you've made the where that you're going to fill with your presence?
So I think when we talk of this language, I'm just inclined to say we are using, from a human paradigm, I can't conceive of God's space. And that's my limitation. And so I would just say to you, Mike, okay, you win on this argument. I don't actually know, but I will know that everything within creation, there's not a place that God isn't within his creation. And I guess supposedly outside of creation, he just is. So that's my, but we can belabor this point. I don't know. Are there, I think we should carry on. I mean,
I was just curious when you talk about God is, I just was curious about what do I mean when you say God is, because if you put the omnis in there, there's a whole other conversation we can have. But yeah, we could definitely go on. What else are part of your essentials?
My essentials.
God
exists. He is the source and ground of all being. For me, it's like everything that we know to exist is because God's existence. That's where I would come at it. So for me, that's an essential. And then we can go on to personal, knowable, that kind of thing. But I think then essentials would be he came in human history. I do believe Jesus is what I would call God's communicative aspect in human form. And what I mean by God's communicative aspect is he is other and he exists in, let's just call it the spiritual dimension. I don't really know how other words to say it. He exists in another form of reality that isn't physical. But in order to communicate himself in the physical world, you've got things in the Bible that talks about the pillar of cloud by day, the pillar of fire by night, Mount Sinai on fire. You've got the angel of the Lord. You've got the glory cloud. You got all these things. And so what is that? That is God communicating himself in a way that humans can interact with. And so I think Jesus is the human embodiment of that aspect of who God is. And so that's what we would call the second person of the Trinity in like religious terms. Yeah.
I don't want to forget these ideas. So as you put that together, Jesus is God's communicative form so that people can grasp. You believe, so I'm curious what you believe about the Bible. You believe the Bible tells us, is the Bible true or does it point us to truths?
Ooh, I like that question. Is it true or does it point us to truth? can it be both? And tell me why it can't be both.
Because there are very many things that we could find in the Bible that strain credulity, or we actually know that that's not how things work. And some Christians like to take the position that it doesn't need to all be true. It can just point us in the direction of things that are true. So for instance, if someone took literally the idea that there's a dome covering the earth, holding back waters on the other side, and then you find out, oh, that's not true. Somebody could say, oh, it never meant to tell us that there was an actual dome. Josh Kreese, he actually is one of the few Christians that would say, no, it is telling us about a divider. It's just not local. It's probably up closer toward the third heaven. But for somebody who says, no, the Bible's talking about a divider that's actually like local, and then you find out it's not there, some Christians retreat to the position of, oh, that didn't need to be true. That was just to point us to a truth that God is responsible for why sometime rain falls and sometime rain doesn't. The way they communicated that was there was a divider holding back the waters. That wasn't true, but the truth it was pointing us to is God's the reason why it rains sometimes and the reason why it doesn't rain other times. That's the difference between it being true versus pointing us to truths.
I think I would push back against that a little bit. And the reason is because that creates this idea that valuable truth has to take a particular form. So I would say, I've heard that you interacted with John Walton, and this is probably
in my book.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I thought it was in person. So for me,
I know somebody who I might ask to actually get me in touch with.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of John Collins. Different John.
I like him too. So I'm okay. My influences in.
I'm sorry. Hold on, real quick. For anybody who's watching, there's two biblical academic John Collins. One is John Collins, who you might hear Derek from Myth Vision talking about. Another John Collins is a Christian conservative evangelical Old Testament scholar. That's who I was just referencing. So when
are you sure you're not talking about John Collins, the scientist, versus John Walton, the biblical scholar?
No.
There's another John Collins.
There's two John Collins. One is a unbeliever Bible scholar. The other is the Christian John
My bad. I'm not even thinking of John Collins. I'm thinking of Francis.
You're thinking of John Walton.
John Walton and Francis Collins. Sorry, my bad.
Gotcha. Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted people to know which John Collins we were talking about. We're talking about the Christian Old Testament scholar, not the other one. But
okay. And I honestly, to be honest, I don't think I even know those names. John Collins.
Okay, all good.
John Walton. I'm like Bible Project, Tamaki, Heiser. These people have influenced my thinking, and I find it compelling that God communicates the way people understand him. And so for me, I think that was literally their science. That was their cosmology. That was their worldview. And so that's how they made sense of like, well, it's like, I'm not borrowing from my culture to talk about microbiology. I'm not borrowing from my culture to talk about atoms and germs and vaccines and et cetera, et cetera. That is my culture. I live here. I don't borrow from my culture to talk about the moon and the solar system and galaxies and black holes. That is my culture. That is how I understand reality. And you know what? In 2,000 years, people are going to mock me because they're going to say I was outdated. So my conception of reality is what it is. Now, how is somebody going to make sense of this world? Because if the Bible is not a theological handbook and it is not a moral guide, it is ancient Jewish wisdom literature, right? And they're wrestling with all the deep questions of like, how does everything relate to everything and what's important and what is wise and what is the good life? They're trying to communicate, how does God fit into all this? And so they use it based on their cosmology. So, you were arguing with Josh about this the other day. I would agree with what you were saying, like a rakia, like in Hebrew, it does mean a hammered solid dome. But I do believe that's how they saw reality. Okay. Now, In the same way, I don't speak ancient Hebrew fluently. I don't think anybody does. I think they speak modern Hebrew. I've got to translate Hebrew into English. I've got to do my cultural studies in order to understand what they meant when they said that, to carry that over. And I'm still doing an interpretive effort into translating it into English. All I'm doing, and this satisfies me, is I'm translating their paradigm into my own paradigm. I'm saying, oh, just like I translate a language, I'm going to translate your cosmology into my cosmology. This is how you saw the world. I don't agree with it, but I'm not going to fault you for it. You saw this. This is how you saw reality. Now, where the interesting connection comes is, and forgive me if I'm belaboring this point, but
I'm tracking with you.
In the beginning, God creates the skies and the land, etc., and he separates the waters from the waters. There's waters above, there's waters below. The waters below called the Tehom, the waters above called the Mirahefet, and he separates them. And so in the ancient mind, the chaos waters are what we would call nothing, or a hostile environment. Nothing can live there. And so God is creating a space within that chaos, so to speak, that place of hostility to create life. Yeah? So for me, I'm like, if I'm translating that concept, that just looks like outer space to me. It's a hostile environment. Things don't flourish there. Things can't live there. And what is Earth? It's a bubble inside the chaos, which God creates life. And so that's how it works in my head. I might not satisfy people, but it works for me. I don't see why it's a big stretch. I'm just translating cosmology, just like I translate Hebrew into English, just like I translate Greek into English.
And to me, all of that is perfectly fine. The question, and we're going to get back to why I even asked you this in the first place in a second, but the question I would have about any of this is, it's one thing to say the Bible is ancient Jewish wisdom literature, and this is how they related to the world around them. It's another thing to take it and say, this is revelation from God. And one of the main questions I had in my deconversion process, deconstructing along the way, is, where does revelation begin and humans just relating to the world around them end? Because if it's all just humans relating, we can take all the stories and say, hey, this is just what they thought at the time, da 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 da.
Yeah.
But if at some point it becomes revelation, the question is, when does God begin to tell them things that was not part of the world that they already understood, was not something that they were going to come up with on their own? And it matters because when you get to the book of Isaiah, very many times throughout the book of Isaiah, God, the God character, as Isaiah prophesies for him, has God saying, I'm the one who hammered out the rakia. I'm the one who made the rakia. And because I did that, you should hear what I'm about to tell you about this.
Yeah.
Now, if it's just God relating to them in terms of, that's what y'all think happened, so I'm going to use the fact that you think I did that to, take that confidence and now put that same confidence in this prophecy I'm giving you. That's a little questionable, I think, ethically.
No,
but
it's not.
if it's
no. I have to push back. Okay. It's not at all questionable. It's not at all questionable. Okay. When my kids are little and we're going to talk about how babies are born, am I going to talk about like sex and like, hey, yo, by the way, I take my penis, I put it in your mom. But like, no, it's like, oh, you know what? It comes from mommy's tummy. Am I saying something that is technically wrong? Yes.
If you say to your kids, if you say to your kids, not comes from mommy's tummy, it comes from the stork that brings the baby in a little bassinet and puts it on our doorstep. That's not just I'm tweaking it for their age, for an age appropriate sex talk. That's a lie.
But so it sounds to me like what you're saying is that because God allowed them to understand him through what they knew, that he was lying to them.
So that's the question. Is it just God allowing them to understand, like, I'm not going to correct your ancient cosmology, or is God actually telling them, I'm the one who stretched out the rakia? I did that. There is a rakia and I did that. What's happening in the text?
So I'm convinced that in terms of the translating the Rakia into modern cosmology, the effect for me is he's saying, I'm the one who makes the ozone layer. I'm the one who stretches out the galaxies. I'm the one who holds all this thing in control. So as my knowledge of the world grows, my knowledge of God and appreciation of God just get bigger because my world just got bigger, right?
What if the scripture said, I'm the one who made the moon out of cheese? Would you also take that as, hey, whatever we end up finding, even if it contradicts what it says in the Bible, that was just God relating to what they thought at the time. Doesn't matter what it actually said there.
But why do you think, what I guess what I'm trying to get at here is,
hold on, I'm sorry. Would you agree, though, that I'm the one who made the moon out of cheese is just as fallacious as I'm the one who stretched out the rakia? They're on the same level, right? Now that we know what they didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's a fair point, but you would still, okay, let's just give you the benefit of the doubt that people did think this, right? Mm-hmm. It sounds ridiculous to our ears, but I'm just trying to fit in, like, if my paradigm is correct, and you don't agree that it is, but if it is correct, I would say that God is revealing something deeper about who he is in terms of, like, I am the master of the cosmos. How you understand that may be limited.
It's not important.
But trust me, I'm the king of it all. And so for me, that's where the important thing. But also coming back to this, I'm inclined to think that when we focus on these things, I'm not trying to detract from the question. I'm just trying to think, I think there's more important things to ask. I think the Bible is asking more important questions. Its questions aren't.
It may be.
Yeah, so I don't think the Bible is going like, hey, by the way, I created the earth in literal 6 days, and that's what you should care about, so that 2,000 years down the road, you could argue with an evolutionist. I don't think it's trying to do that. I think it's saying, hey, you know what? Baal is not God. Molech is not God. Asherah is not God. Yahweh is God. Because if you compare it, if you do comparative literature analysis, and you go through the ancient cosmologies of Egypt and Babylon and Mesopotamia, they all sound very similar. And like, so what am I supposed to do?
Switching out the name of a god. They're taking credit for the same things. It's just, no, our God did it, not your God.
Yes. So I would say that what's happening in Genesis is a polemic. It's establishing Yahweh is the one who did all these things. It isn't this other God. That was important to them. Now, for me as a person who's willing to submit to scripture, I'm just like, okay, not important to me, but it was important to them. So I'm going to enter into their world and just try and see it from their perspective to see what's important to them and just let this flesh out. Just like when you watch a movie, you enter the movie. Right. And if they're just like, by the way, the world is trillions of years old and this is going on, this is going on.
Right. You accept the premise. You lock yourself in. You suspend your disbelief even so that you can enter that world.
Right. So in a sense,
the question would be, I'm sorry, I love your analogy. Very rarely do we leave the movie theater still wearing the 3D glasses. Right. We know we needed those 3D glasses for that film because we entered that their setting and everything. Once we close that book or once the credits roll, we don't, but that's not what people are doing with the Bible.
No, because the Bible in a sense is claiming something different. It's saying this is the mode of communication to tell you about something that we believe is actually real.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm entering their world and saying, this is how they actually saw reality. And so for me, I'm going, what's the fundamental that goes across the board, right? I may not believe in the cosmology as they believed it, but I still believe God is as much in control of the weather patterns today as he was then. I believe he's as much in control over how the earth functions as he was then. So for me, I'm able to transpose that, and it doesn't affect me.
So in light of that, would you, because every Christian is different, I find, would you think it was erroneous for a Christian who has the view that you have to go to another religion and say the proof that your God isn't true is your God couldn't get these details about creation right? the fact that you think this is how it happened, and now we know that that's not the case, that rules your God out. Would you think that was the Christian who's using that to?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Like,
gotcha.
I wouldn't do that. Why would I waste my time? Like, it's such a.
Well, I'm just saying, if they're claiming to be telling you the truth,
yeah,
and then you could disprove what they're saying is true. Like, so just imagine, go back to, 800 BCE. Let's say someone was able to gift them with a microscope or a telescope, and they were able to see what we now know.
Yeah.
Do you think that any one of them would go to the others and say, aha, this is proof that the God that you worship, who's claiming to have done this, cannot have done this? Or would they have said, oh, we didn't think it was literal anyway?
I think I'm not understanding it. Please, can you repeat it or say it in a different way? If the thing
that we know now were exposed to them in 800 BCE, would it have defeated their God claims, or would they have said to us what Christians say now, which is it was never meant to be a science book, it was never meant to be literal? Or would the evidence that we have now, would it have demolished their God claims back then?
No, I don't think so. There's this saying among Jewish sages when they meet somebody who's super intelligent and they know something that they themselves didn't know. They're just like, praise God for revealing this wisdom to these people. And so they're able to just see, like, you know what? All truth is God's truth. If there's something that's valid and true, like, praise the Lord. And so here's the other, I have to sneak this in. I must, because I think it's important if we're going to go down this line of reasoning, is you'll have people like the Ken Ham cult, the Ken Ham camp, where they're all about like, that has to be this particular way. If you don't see my paradigm, you're not a true Christian, or you're an inconsistent Christian and you can't believe in Jesus because you don't believe in this. But at the same time, you'll have the text consistently speak about how Earth talks, how Earth is the one telling its own story. And it's like, it's basically saying, talk to the planet and let it tell you its story. And so in terms of science, I'm just like, what is it telling you? What is the Earth telling you? Let it speak. And I can hold that and say, and God is yet glorified. Thank you, Father God, for revealing this thing. But I also know that if God was going to try and say something in terms of geography, in terms of any physical sciences and stuff like that, he'd have to rewrite the Bible every 10, 20 years. You know what I'm saying?
Or just say it correctly the first time. And
so
we'd stumble into like, oh, look, it was right. It said this and now look.
Okay. So be gracious enough to put yourself in that position. Where
in which position?
In a position of a person
or the revealer.
The writer of scripture, so the first century Israelite and Mesopotamians and Egyptians, and says, hey, by the way, in 400 years, 4,000 years, you guys are, heck, even whatever, you guys are going to go to the moon and you're going to go to Mars and you're going to see the brink of the solar system. Like, that's amazing. I know it's not relevant to you right now, it has no bearing on your daily life, but you should know this. I'm just not thinking that's a very profitable way to communicate. I just don't see the value in it.
But the Bible all the time tells them things that they really can't fact check at the moment.
Like? Oh, like right? Prophecy, you mean?
No, not prophecy. The Bible tells a story about people trying to build towers that go into the heavens, and God stopped them. Because if they had completed it, they would have reached the heavens. But the authors never thought that they would ever be able to check. They didn't think we'd have airplanes flying at 30,000 feet. They thought that Rakia was unreachable and no one would ever be able to fact check that. So the Bible saying things that no one could ever disprove at that time would not have tripped any wires. The only thing that would have tripped wires is if they had said things that other cultures didn't already accept, which is kind of a telltale sign to me that that's what's going on. You're just borrowing culturally acceptable ideas.
If it's not a culture, no. If you're not borrowing it, but that is your conception, there's not a borrowing happening, right? So what's
there's a
happening with
borrowing in the
Israel?
sense of, go ahead.
Well, Israel, right? They live in the same world with the same literary paradigms, the same geography, the same all this. They're not borrowing. So I think that we just have to be very careful about who's borrowing from who when we start talking like that. What is happening is there a truth claim about saying who is in control of the cosmos, who has the right to dictate teaching and instruction that we have to live by, who is the one who ultimately is going to judge us for our actions, who is this one? And so if we're just looking at for what it's trying to do, it's saying it's a polemic. Like Yahweh is the owner. He is the controller. He is the one. And if we're getting hung up on I would say the minutia of that, are we missing the point?
So I would say they may not be borrowing their cosmology, but they definitely are borrowing their cosmogony. They're getting their stories from the older, more established cultures and peoples around them. I don't think that's debatable in comparable mythology or cosmology. Like their stories are stories that were taken from, you name it, Enuma Elish, Adapa, all kinds of stories from ancient Near East. But so look, so here, let's try to trace back. The only reason why I even asked you whether or not the Bible gives us truths or is it true is because I was really riffing off of your statement about Jesus being God in communicative form.
Yes.
Because my question was, I did all of that. The last 18 minutes was really because I wanted to ask you this question.
Yeah.
When God went walking in the cool of the day in the garden looking for Adam and Eve, if that was not Jesus, then clearly God doesn't need Jesus to come in a communicative form because he was doing it from the third page of the Bible.
I'm sorry, there's crackling. Is that on my end or your end? It's on you. Okay. So do I think that the one walking in the garden was Jesus before Jesus? Is that your question?
How's the mic now? Is it better?
It's good now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the crackling is gone.
Well, it's not. My question is not necessarily was the one in the garden Jesus before Jesus. The question is, if Jesus is God in communicative form, did God actually need to do that? Because God seemed to have been doing that from the very beginning.
Oh, so it seems to me like your ultimate question is why bother with the incarnation at all?
Exactly.
Right? Oh, dude. No, we don't have enough time. I would love to answer that question. We don't have enough time.
So hold on. Trust me, as a former Christian, I don't necessarily need you to give me a full theological explanation of why God needed a killable body and all that. I understand it, but I'm just saying, you said that he was God in communicative form, and I'm saying
well, I say it's God's communicative aspect in human form.
God's communicative aspect in human form.
Yeah, so it's just my way of I'm trying to put words to what is the thing where this invisible, intangible mind, intellect, essence, non-physical entity, how can he communicate to us in this physical world? What is the means through which he's going to do that? And so for me, it's any expression of God in this world that was visible, tangible in any way, that was the aspect of who God is that became human. Does that make sense? Because it says in John, the Shekhinah, like the word took on flesh, and we have seen God's Shekhinah, which is exactly that. We have seen him, he tabernacled amongst us. So God's Shekhinah became embodied as a way of God saying, if I'm going to communicate in any way, if I'm going to communicate so you understand who I am, this is probably the best way you're going to understand me is if I become human. You're going to really know who I am. You're going to really catch my heart. You're going to really know what I'm like, which is why Jesus could say to Philip, you don't know me? I've been with you for all this time and you don't know me? Right? When he was like, just show us the Father. It'll be enough for us. And he's like, you don't know who I am? In other words, he's like, dude, I've been walking around here for like 3 years. How do you not know who I am? This is who God is. You're looking at it. So that's kind of where I come with that.
So I hear you. You don't think it's a little anthropomorphic and a little pedestrian even to have an all-powerful God who cannot relate to humans without becoming one?
I don't think it's that he can't. I think it's that he so loves his embodied world that he's willing to become part of it. You know what I mean? Like the whole premise of Genesis 1, the opening chapters, is that this world is good. And Jesus coming in the flesh is him confirming this world is good. Embodiment is good. The material is good. It's what's happened to it that's bad. So I've come to do that which restores. Does that make sense? Because the whole premise of Jesus coming, the incarnation, the death, burial, resurrection, ascension, and then pointing forward to the restoration of all things. That's what it is. It's the restoration of Eden. Heaven and earth becoming the same space, God's dimension and human dimension becoming the same place. That's the goal of creation. And so I think for him to become embodied, it's identification. I'm fully identifying with my creation. It's complete identification and embodiment. You know what I mean? I'm going to start preaching if I don't stop. But
no, I mean, I hear you. I guess it just seems to make everything, like I said, it's so.
So when you say anthropomorphic and pedestrian, what's in your mind when you're saying that?
It's anchored to earth. It's nothing. So for instance, there's a story, I think it's in Exodus, where Moses takes the elders, 72 elders or however many elders there are, they go up into the mountains, which they thought, this is an ancient Near Eastern idea, that the mountains were holding up the dome, the Rakia.
Mm-hmm. And they saw the sapphire dome and they saw the feet of God.
Immediately on the other side of the dome, they see the feet of God.
Yeah.
Very rarely does the Bible try to take us up there in a way that's fact checkable and falsifiable. It brings everything down here in a way that's just like, well, I guess we have to take their word for it that this was God in the flesh. There's never any big reveal. It's always human things. You know, it's like if somebody said you got 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Wait, that's the same thing. Like you haven't taken us to the divine, yet you keep telling us that the divine has invaded earth. But everything you show us that's divine is all this earth stuff. God became a man and we're going to get new earthly bodies, and we don't know what they're going to be like, but they're going to be like his. What was his like? Well, we don't even know. It's always
we do have
stuff
hints,
that we can fathom.
Yeah. Again? Well, we do have some hints, very few. Like just look at what Jesus did post-resurrection, and that's your conception. There was some aspect of his new physical body that also participated in the spiritual dimension at the same time, in the sense of like he just shows up. It's like, so okay, if the best thing we get is teleportation, like, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. But okay, so for me, when you're talking like this, what it goes back to in my mind is the whole point of it's basically the base premise of the kingdom of heaven. So when you look at Genesis and you arch that all the way to the Revelation, what you're doing is you're seeing these major points, right? And the fundamental beginning is that God wants to rule the world, and he, by his sovereign decree, is doing it through people. And then the essence of the Garden of Eden is to say, I'll rule through you, rule through Eden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is who rules the human heart. Is God ruling the human heart through which you rule the world, or are you going to rule your own heart through which you rule the world? And that's going to judge the trajectory of how this goes. And so I think embodiment in the very beginning as the image of God is the point, which is why we have the Bible as a human and divine product, which is why humans are dirt and divine breath, which is why Jesus, the ultimate image of God, is not just dirt and divine breath, he's dirt and the divine breather. So because God so cares about this world, and so he embodies it.
Yeah, I hear you, but that just seems like so much. Mommy told me to tell you to give me your dinner. Like, mommy's not here to say it, but
Okay.
trust me, she said you should give me your dinner. Like,
Okay.
God wants to rule the world through humans is a great way to never have to present a God.
So help me understand the rub. It sounds to me like you're saying that's a really convenient way to not show up.
To not have to show up. He's always planned to do it through humans. Therefore, you shouldn't expect him to show up. You never have to produce a God.
Except I think that's where the scriptures come in and say, yes, he does show up. Right? Like that's the story of scripture is he wants to do it from humans. Yes, they messed up, and that's why he visits. That's why he visits at altars. That's why he visits in the temple. That's why he visits the angel of the Lord. That's why he visits his people.
So do you know my nicknames for the Christian God and the Hebrew God?
No.
So I have many nicknames, but they're hyphenated names. But my two most common nicknames for that God is Bible God and Book God. Because
Book God.
Book God. Because he always shows up in the book. He always comes through in the book. But in real life, you don't get to see him. He's bound to these bound pages. So I hear what you're saying. Like when I say you never have to produce a God, you say, but he did show up. And I'm like, yeah, in the book.
Right. But for me, like I'm like, that's not nothing. So I accept that and be like, okay, he did do that there. That I'm convinced that there are people, I think their stories are legit. I have no good reason to doubt them, who say they have interacted. Audible voice, vision, dreams, etc. I'm just like, okay.
Pause for 1 second. When you say you have no good reason to doubt them, are you sure you have no good reason to doubt them? Because you didn't hear the voice.
Touche. I guess I mean, in terms of character, of who these people are, and I've known them, like, okay, I think I haven't. I'd want to. Why did he pick you and not me? I don't know. But unless there's a reason for you to lie to me, they
don't have to be lying, because one of the things that you know about human beings is we're often mistaken. We're often allowing our minds. There's a story I tell about my childhood, a core memory that I was telling wrong for years because I misremembered it. There are times when people, they produce new memories of things that never happened. It didn't happen that way. So it doesn't mean that they're necessarily lying, though sometimes they may know in their heart of hearts that they're hyping it up to make it seem a little more juicy than it was. But they don't have to be lying. But I'm just saying that to say, you know enough things about human beings that should make you a little skeptical of this person says they heard from God.
Dude, I'm not saying I'm not skeptical. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying
there are reports of him showing up. I get you.
Yeah. Like there are reports. So we could say it's just in the book. It's like, well, it wasn't for them. And for that other person, and for that other person. Now, if I'm hearing thousands of these reports, I'm like, oh crap! I wish it happened to me. Like, what the frick? Like, show up, dude. Like, I've been feeling you for all these years. Like, come on, help a brother out. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, there's a part of me that wants that. Yeah. I have not experienced that yet. Am I going to allow that to create such an offense in me that I'm going to be like, well, screw you then? I don't think that's a legitimate reason. You know, it's funny. I say that there's 11 Beatitudes, not 10. The 11th Beatitude, he goes through all the blessings in the Sermon on the Mount. But later on, John is asking if he's the one. And he says, blessed are those who don't take offense at me. In other words, John is hyped up going, I have all these expectations of what you need to be. And you're not matching any of them. I'm offended. In fact, I am entitled for you to come hook me up and get me out of prison. And Jesus does nothing that he expects and says, blessed is the one who does not take offense at me. So I think that there's some aspects in my walk with God where he does things that are baffling. And that's a real thing. You just got to wrestle with that. It's like, okay, this is the God who does what God wants to do, not what I want to do. And it offends me. I really wish he would do things different. You know what I mean? What am I?
You can add a 12th. You can add a 12th to that, unless this is already in your list, because you have Thomas who doubted and says, I won't believe until I can put my hands through the holes in his wrist and his side where he was pierced. And then Jesus shows up and says, hey, you believe because you saw, but blessed are they who have not seen and yet still believe. But here's the rub for me.
Okay.
Blessed are those who don't take offense at me. Blessed are they who have not seen and yet still believe. All of that to me sounds like cope for a God who never shows up the way he said he would. You've got an entire Old Testament or Hebrew Bible full of, here's what God is going to do for the nation of Israel. And it never says, so long as they believe when the Messiah comes, I'm going to do it. No, it says, on that day, I'm going to put my law in their heart. I'm going to put my spirit within them and cause them to walk in my ways. God says he's going to do all these things. Not if I show up and they accept my Messiah, I'll do it. God says he's going to do all these things, and it never happens. So for him to say to John, hey, I know I'm not showing up the way you thought I was supposed to, getting you out of prison and putting Rome under your feet. But hey, blessed are you if that doesn't offend you. And blessed are you if you don't see and still believe. It seems like it's all cope for God never showing up to do the things he said he would.
I can sympathize with that. I don't think that that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. But I'll grant you that that's a hard thing. Like, what if I just say that? Like, I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's a real struggle. Like, yeah, I think we have to just wrestle with that.
Well, now hold on, because even if you're willing to go that far, here's what I would say. If you think that's a worthwhile struggle and that's a hard thing, and you can sympathize,
I can sympathize with the emotional impact of that.
Right, with the emotional impact of that. What part of you allows you to say, and I guess it's holiness and justice if God sends someone to hell for not being able to get over that hump? Because you just said, man, I could understand why somebody would struggle with that.
Yeah. So, that's just a whole nother can of worms, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And so you need to have me on again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because the hell question is a massive question. Right.
Yeah. Well, we could stick a pin there. We don't have to go there. That's
yeah.
So too massive.
It's just do I believe God is unjust? No. And so if just a quick notes on judgment, God is just. He will punish those who do wrong in kind. If you do wrong, he'll pay you in kind. And so that's what I know. Right. And that's where I'm still open in the sense of just like, what does that look like? How does that flesh itself out? And I used to think one way, and I don't think completely another way. I'm still wrestling through that whole thing. But there's certain things, and we can talk about it later. I'm like, well, these are the cards on the table. This is what we know, and from this is how I can produce my idea of what that looks like. But do I think God is unjust in the sense of like, you just didn't give me enough information? That's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's a real wrestle, because there's a part of me that's like, I don't know, maybe you just didn't like the package, because Jesus said, this generation is like children playing in the marketplace. We played the flute for you. You did not dance. We played a dirge for you. You did not cry. For, John came, he didn't eat, he didn't drink. He said he has a demon. Son of Man came eating and drinking. And you say he's a drunken and friend, tax collectors, sinners. In other words, you didn't play the music the way I wanted you to play it, so I am not playing. And so sometimes I wonder, and I can see already you're just like, yeah, I ain't buying that response. I get it. But I'm just like, for me, I guess I'm willing to be like, that's a hard one. And that's one of those where I'm just like, but this much, I've got these 100 reasons to have trust, and this one reason to be deeply scandalized or confused or frustrated or baffled, what have you. Pick your idea. And she's like, okay, but I got this, and this for me carries me while this one doesn't carry me yet. So
I'm on the other side. I've got one reason to trust the Bible and God.
Oh, can you tell me what it is? At least I just want to know that out of this whole conversation.
It's the same as yours. It's the same as yours. It was my comfort, and it worked for me for so long. That's my one reason to trust. I've got 100 other reasons on the other side to not trust. And that's it. I'm offended by the lack of logic. I'm offended by what seemed to be lies. I'm offended by the failed prophecy. I'm offended by, so I got all these other reasons on the other side.
Wow.
And then on the other, back on the side that I was on initially, it was, but it worked. It got me out of the streets. It got me into a more healthy life. It worked. It was functional for me. So this is going to be very short, but I've been having you in the hot seat all night answering my questions. Do you have any questions for me before I let you go?
Oh yeah, we got to wrap up soon, eh? Oh man.
Well, I mean, I try to keep it to an hour and a half, 2 at the most, but I live here, so I'm good. I'm good. It's up to you.
Yeah. Well, I could keep going if you'll have me.
So if you have any questions for me, I'll let you steer for a little bit.
Yeah, I can ask questions. I just want to say, I came into this with some trepidation. I didn't know what to expect. I haven't been looking at the comments. I'm too sensitive. I'll probably get hurt. But I was just like,
having a great conversation in the comments.
I've been really appreciating your questions. I've been appreciating how gracious you've been. I really like that. So I just want to give you props for, even though we do disagree, I think your opening statement was bang on. Like, humanize each other, right? Because the bottom line, I'm looking at a person who, I don't think you came to any of your conclusions in a vacuum. I don't think it was without struggle. I don't think it was without prayer. I don't think it was without deep conflict. Something broke for you where I remained resilient, right? And so for you, you mentioned a few things. You just offhanded through them, like failed prophecies, et cetera, et cetera. I'd be super interested and go, wow, I would probably disagree with you on those things where you didn't. Forgive me if this sounds offensive. I don't mean to be offensive. Where you didn't seem to have resilience to bear through certain things because you saw things and were scandalized by it, and you're like, screw that. I didn't have that. So I would just be curious about those, to be like, what brought you to the conclusion that it wasn't worth holding on to? What brought you to the conclusion that these things weren't worth the weight of the unknown? These things weren't worth the weight of the apparent conflicts of not just what you saw in the Bible. I'm talking Bible contradictions. We're just saying conflict of, like, I believed this, but this is happening, and there's an issue. It's creating cognitive dissonance that I can't solve. I'm just going to abandon that. So I don't want you to belabor things that you've probably told to people before, because your crowd has, like, really, I don't want to hear this again. Why don't you tell me what you think I might want to know? Because I don't know anything, but what you might know that other people might be refreshed to hear. Does that make sense?
If you can rephrase it, I thank you for phrasing it the 2 ways you already have. Rephrase it one more time, that I make sure I answer what you're actually asking.
Pick a handful of things that broke you, that you didn't have to, that maybe nice. don't repeat ad nauseum the story you've been telling over and over again.
That's a great way to phrase that question. I appreciate that. I really do. And I hope my audience appreciates that too, because I think you're right. They've heard me speak on this several times. I'll go with one that I don't often get to share a lot. And that is, this didn't break me. This made me comfortable with being broken in terms of the faith that I once held. One of the things that made me most comfortable with walking away from a faith and faith at all is I had to wrestle with this. If there's a God who wants to be known, not just known, but worshiped, not just worshiped, but loved, not just loved, but served, the dispersion of people groups around the planet who've not heard the gospel, and not heard the gospel convincingly, even if they've heard it.
Yeah, not
heard it how many times? Right. I heard it how many times before I finally bowed the knee to Jesus? Many times. So you can't just say, oh, well, a missionary did go there. Wait. I had 55,000 chances to hear the gospel. They got 5. They got, and not even in their language. Somebody had to translate. Like, a God who could be as comfortable with the nations not experiencing what I was telling people was the thing you were made to experience. For as long as peoples have been around not experiencing this.
Why the disproportionate revelation?
Why the disproportionate revelation? And this God cannot be as concerned about revealing himself and being known and being worshiped and being loved and being served as I'm saying. And I think hitting the equal sign there, when adding all these things up, it just made much more sense to me that the reason why there are different gods and the God that I says loves the whole world didn't introduce himself to anyone else but this group and allowed it to spread out through word of mouth ever so slowly. The reason why that happens is because this is all earthbound. This is all anchored to earth. That's what I meant when I said this is pedestrian.
Can I repeat what I think I just heard to see if
yes, please.
Yep. It sounds to me like you're saying because there's a disproportionate. If God loved him so much, if my message was as valuable as I had been proclaiming, he's not really doing a good job of getting it out there, according to my standards.
Not necessarily not just doing a good job. It doesn't seem to be as important. It doesn't seem to be as
okay. He doesn't value it as much as I've been told he values it. Right?
He doesn't value it, or he doesn't value people as much as I'm saying he does.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then what you're saying is, therefore, I've come to the conclusion that the only reason there's religious paradigms in this world is just because people made this stuff up.
Not I've come to the conclusion because of that, but having already come to that conclusion, that helped me rest with it.
Interesting.
It's like, oh, that's another thing. Okay. Because I always felt a little bit of, if you don't mind me just saying this, felt a little bit like a dick saying what Christians say about the unreached people groups. I know my God is just. We're all born in sin anyway. So anybody who ends up in hell, they deserved it. But God's going to, in his judgment, who knows? Maybe he revealed it in dreams and maybe he's going to do something special for the people that whatever I used to say. I look back at that once I deconverted and said, it's a relief not to have to run those files anymore.
Interesting.
So it's not like that thought made me say, therefore, I don't believe. It was having come to unbelief. That was one of the biggest reliefs for me was, and unbelief also solves that issue. Wow. Okay, cool. We're all just humans trying to figure it out. That's much better than what I had been saying about the disproportionate revelation.
May I offer not a counter perspective, but I just want to throw something in here that it helps me process this stuff. Okay. Again, you're touching on certain things that is going to take another 2 hours to talk through. So I don't want to go there. I think you're right. Like, let's just put a pin in it and say, this is super important. I would love to dialogue about it. I don't think we have time for that. But that being said, even if, human beings, like, let's just take the premise of like, people just make this stuff up, right? Like, so this is where it comes from me. It's like, why do people throughout history veer towards the transcendent? Why do they keep going there relentlessly, habitually, even if they do it wrong? What is that thing within the human psyche that just keeps wanting to go there? And so then I also then ask, when I'm thirsty, why does that happen? When I'm hungry, why does that happen? When I long for intimacy and companionship, why does that happen? Why does loneliness happen? Why do I long for beauty? What are all these things?
C.S. Lewis, if I find in myself a desire for something that nothing on earth can fill, that must mean I was made for another world.
Well, I would word it differently in the sense of like, if there's hunger for something, that's an echo that it can be filled. Or at least there's a hope that it can be filled. There's just drawing. So then for me, I'm going, what is it about the human paradigm that just keeps looking up? Like relentlessly. Like, even people who are in strict atheistic regimes, that after 70 years, they're going like, this really just doesn't satisfy. Something else, right? And even atheists, like the new atheist movement, they're like, well, we'll just make up meaning on our own. Why? I mean, if your premise is correct, I'm just going to go on I'm just pretending the interlocutor here, and he's just like super skeptical. It's like, why? God doesn't exist. Time plus matter plus chance made you. You're not special. Therefore, you have no rights. There's no up or down, no right, wrong, no left, right. Nothing matters. Why do you care? Why do you even want meaning? It's a stupid question. It's like there's this guy, I think his name is Adrian Gray. He wrote this book called Straw Dogs. He calls himself a hard atheist. He's basically, if we're fully willing to come to the conclusion that there is no God, then there's no such thing as human rights. We don't actually matter. So let's not pretend. So there's also that aspect. I'm just like, but touching with that, forgive me. It's like, there's also this deep hunger for justice. There's this thing inside that says the world is messed up. This is not the way it ought to be. Things ought to be different. What is that? And so I'm sorry for taking your airtime, but for me, what that does is actually points, this is actually why I'm convinced there's a God, because there's this longing for justice. There's this longing for the transcendence, but there's also longing for life. Like, death is the most natural thing that happens to people, and yet it's the most unnatural thing. Why? And so for me, that's where it's part of my shelf. Like, I can't ignore that. That's a thing. That's a thing that just can't go away from me. And so those are also sustaining factors for me. So the thing that you're just like, no, that's a deal breaker for me. I'm like, I don't know, man. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm still here.
Well, so I don't pretend that those existential questions aren't real. Mm-hmm. But what I'm not willing to do is embrace something that I, A, can't verify, and B, that I can actually invalidate just to get answers to those questions. So I ask questions. I have moments of nihilism. I fight it. I invent new meanings. I give myself things to look forward to. Like, why I care about meaning? I think the idea of meaning is something that we make. We make meaning. We're meaning-making machines. And
why?
We get to make because we can.
Because we can.
Because we can.
We long to.
Well, the person who's 5'4" might long to be 5'9". The fact that he has that desire doesn't mean that it's in the cards that he's going to have to become that. So the idea of, and I think it's sort of it's a byproduct of our evolution. Like, our evolution, the way that our brains have developed is finding why things have happened. And mainly the reason, say again?
No, you just keep going. I was going to interrupt. Yeah. I'm stopping myself.
Mainly the reason why our brains have developed to find out why things have happened is because it was one of the main things that helped keep us alive. You probably heard atheists and naturalists talk about this. If you hear a sound in the bushes, you can assume the wind blew a twig down, or you could assume it's a rattlesnake. If you assume it's a rattlesnake and you're wrong, at least you ran and you live. If you assume it's the wind blowing a twig down and you're wrong, and it's really a rattlesnake, well, now you're dead. So we began tracing out, wait, why is that happening? And think about it. There are missionaries today who go to what we would call undeveloped or underdeveloped places.
Yeah.
And most of the people in those environments, you know what they spend the majority of their time doing?
Tell me.
Finding things to eat. Going on hunting raids, fishing. The majority of their time is spent finding things to eat.
Right.
The rest of the time, finding a mate, raising children. They don't have the free time to sit around and think about the things that we think about.
Are you referring to? So go ahead. No, you were going to finish the sentence. I was interrupting.
I was going to say, like, if you read diaries of people from who traveled out west back during the pioneer period of this country.
Yeah.
When people started making washing machines and making things, refrigerators. There are people who write in their diaries like, well, I mean, why am I going to spend my time like a washing machine? Like I'll wash my hand, I'll take them down to the creek and bang them against the rock. All these modern conveniences you're trying to get me to start using. What am I going to do with all that free time? Like one of the reasons why they didn't like the modern conveniences was you want me to just sit around doing nothing all day? But it's the modern conveniences of I can store my food in a freezer and a refrigerator. I can heat it up in the microwave. I don't have to spend 3 hours cooking. It's our modern conveniences that have given us time to think about, damn, what am I going to spend my time doing now? Why am I like the question of meaning? Why am I here? Would have hardly come up before we develop to the point where we're advancing and we're delegating. You guys are the farmers. You're the agrarians. You guys are the livestock. You do that. Now we've got time for philosophy. Now we got time to think. Before then, we didn't have time for these kinds of questions to think about meaning the way that we do now. So I'm just saying that to say the question of meaning that perplexes you so much is really a modern luxury. When I say modern, I mean since we began to free ourselves
civilized luxury.
Civilized luxury, yes.
My only pushback to that is the all the ancient writings. Unless we take the premise like all the writings of those civilizations came from civilization. And so they're wrestling with meaning because they're civilized. And so
right, like I said, if you delegate the farmers and the people who are doing the livestock and the builders and the smiths, you delegate all that. You don't have to do it yourself. You've got time to sit around and start thinking about why'd that rock fall? It must be gravity. It must be whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Interesting. I hear what you're saying. And I think it's a really fun thought experiment. And there has some, I'm going to say has validity to it, but I'm not convinced that's the whole picture. I'm not convinced that to say, well, you were just too busy. So meaning only comes from relaxation. I'm not convinced that that's the truth. I'm
not saying meaning only comes from relaxation, but the quest for it, I think, does.
How are those two separate questions?
Because the idea of, so we can talk about meaning in terms of like, do the words we're speaking have meaning? Yes. Yeah. But then you zoom the camera lens out further. Do I have meaning? Because this goes back to the disproportionate revelation. So let's say what you're saying is true. Like the question of meaning is so quintessential that we all ought to stop everything and spend time thinking about it and getting an answer for it and leaving it on the shelf if we don't have it. But the Christian, the Judeo-Christian maybe, they've tapped into that meaning. But what that means is, so the God of meaning, the God who's given us this purpose and all that, has left countless generations and countless societies without meaning and left it only to this small stream of people. They found meaning. Meanwhile, all these other people, they lived, sure, they died, but they never had meaning. They never found meaning.
Interesting. My response for this is probably going to be laughable to you. You're going to be like, see, God of the book. But I'm reminded of the book of Acts, where Paul talks about how God is not far from each one of us, and he's left them a witness. And I was listening to Dr.
Well, it says he's not far from each one of us. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So I might be conflating two passages. It might not be actually in the same sentence. So
yeah.
There's an aspect in where he's like, he's not far from each one of us, and he's left everybody a witness. Now, some people have translated or taken that to mean the apostles preaching are the witness, right? Other people have actually taken that to mean no, like the Homer's Iliad and Odyssey and this book and that book. These are all navigating, and they're actually hitting truth on some level, but it's not full. And so some people take that to mean like, no, God has been speaking to people all throughout the ages. But what's happened with the advent of Christ and all the implications of that is here's what it's been aiming for. Jesus is the climax of the chiasm. He is the goal at which everybody was pointing. And for the Jewish man, he is the goal at which the Torah was pointing. For the Greek man, he is the goal at which our philosophers were pointing. For the Babylonian, he was the goal at which our entire civilization, like order and whatever, was pointing. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, that's why I find the New Testament talks in terms of like, to the Roman, you want glory, you want honor, you want immortality. To the Greek, he's like, you want virtue. And so he's just like, enter Jesus. He is the epitome of everything you guys have been looking for. And so
I would agree with you. But to me, that just makes him a great literary project.
Makes him a great literary project?
Right. You can write. It's almost like the create your own player, right? You can take LeBron's athleticism. You can take Steph Curry's three-point shooting. You can take from all the other ones and then build your own. He's the pinnacle of the chiasm. You can do that when you've got all the literature and all the motifs there before you.
Which they did, right?
Right. Yeah.
Are we on the same page?
I'm saying he's no more than a great literary project.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the brilliance and maybe the offense and the scandal. Okay, if I'm hearing you correctly, and I could be misunderstanding you, but it's like God has amped up human history for the moment where he is the character that he's been designing. And so this isn't that he is the great literary character. He is the Word made flesh. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's the brilliance. That's the scandal. He's like, I'm the guy. I am the thing that you've been looking for the whole time.
But you're right. You're right, though. Like, my response is in a book. In the book, yes. In the book, yes. Bring that out to real life, and you don't see that. You don't see that outside of people like you and me taking and making that the standard for our lives and then finding value in it. But people who are in different cultures and different religions, they have their own ways of doing that, and they don't need our Jesus.
And I think this is the part where you and me just disagree, right? Because I think that the unique thing about Jesus is that, yes, there's all these cool little like idiosyncrasies, right? Like he is the epitome of all of these things. Yes. But I think the difference between how you perceive it and how I perceive it, you're like, yeah, he's just that. I'm like, no, he is the reality of that. And so then this would come into where I think you and I might also disagree is I believe the witness that said we encountered this actual reality. We encountered this actual person in real time. Yes, we wrote about it. So yes, your argument, it's still in the book. But for me, that's not nothing. Now, here's the other thing where this is where it connects to me in the modern era, so to speak. This witness carried forward in writing, but not just in writing. It carried forward as the scripture talks about how the Holy Spirit will come and bear witness and give you the deposit guaranteeing the inheritance, all this kind of stuff. Like for me, I'm like, well, what you said would happen in the book is an experiential relevant reality to me now, which then gives me hope and resilience for if this is what was promised and I didn't see it, but you gave me this and I do experience, then I have hope for the fullness of the thing that which is coming, which is in which I have my hope. So I think that's where it might seem that that's the break. That's like this right here is where like, I'm in and you're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes, indeed. And I think that this is a great jumping off point because almost everybody that I've had on, the first conversation, like I said to you, very open-ended. But after we kind of get a chance to see where each other are, I definitely would love to have you back on because then I think we can drill down on a few key topics of disagreement to kind of flesh some things out. But I really do think this was a great conversation. I love how you've thought through why you still believe and the way that you express what you believe, I think it resonates with people. Just that this is a person who's like, you're doing the work. Some people just lazily still believe. I think you've fought for why you still believe. And I think it's great to see somebody just a man of faith for the reasons that you express. And I would love to come back and dive more into it. I got a super chat real quick from Mo Wheat. Thank you, man, for the $2 super chat. It sounds to me like you, is that for me? Is that, I think that may be for Damien.
No, I think I felt like that was for me. And I'd be like, well, yay. I mean, you can say that. But
so let me just read it out. He says, it sounds to me like you don't value truth enough. What would you say to that?
What would I say to that? Que se veritas. No. I'm like, on what premise? And how would you, like, if he was on screen, I'd be like, unpack that. Because it's easy enough for you to say, I don't value truth enough. What do you mean? Are we talking scientific truth? Are we talking emotional truth? Are we talking experiential truth? Are we talking metaphorical truth? What do you mean by that? Are you saying that because I didn't come to the conclusion you came to, that somehow I'm selling short and not thinking through things? And to be honest, if I was not a gracious person, I'd be like, bite me. Like, what a stupid thing to say.
I think the ungraciousness came out anyway.
So it's like that's just me being sardonic. And the reason is because what I saw in that comment wasn't somebody who's been listening. There's somebody who is listening to give an answer. They're like, well, you just didn't come to my conclusion, so you just must not have been looking up truth enough. It's like, really?
Well, let me rephrase it in a way, because I think there's something in the question that I do resonate with. This is the question that I like to ask people at times.
Okay.
Do you care whether or not the things that you believe are true?
Do I care that they're true? Yes, but let me lay my biases on the table. Okay? This is just where I'm at. I'm convinced that what I believe is the truth. And so for me, and this might be a problematic thing where I have to still flesh this out and work this out. This might be circular reasoning. I believe what I believe is the truth, and I value it because it's true, right? So somebody might turn around and say, well, just because you think it's true doesn't make it true. You don't value real truth because you're unwilling to question your paradigm, etc. The rabbit trail can go on. And you know what? If you're right, then you know what? I'm not dead yet. But this is where I am today. This is my working theory. This is what I've come to is like, this has the most explanatory value. This has the most resonance.
Now, so can I ask you about that? Because you said that several times.
Sorry.
A lot of times folks that come from where I stand, they talk about explanatory power, but you use the phrase explanatory value, which is a different idea.
Maybe I mean the same thing and I've misspoke.
Well, no, but I think it's good that you misspoke, because even if you didn't mean that, it seems like you do mean it, though, because explanatory value is I value this explanation whether or not it's true, versus explanatory power, which is this actually does have the ability to account for these variables.
I would say I haven't probably thought this through to give a valid answer, but I would be inclined to think that I'm the kind of person who thinks that this does satisfy. And unless it has sufficient counterpoints that actually sound convincing to me, I don't actually pay it much mind. So for me, it's like, well, you didn't think about this enough. I'm like, because it's not important. Because I don't care enough. If you can convince me I even need to care about questioning this, then we can have a conversation. But right now, you haven't convinced me that I need to even care to investigate. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm stuck here, if you want to call it that. I'm like, I'm here. And unless any other objections come forward that make me go, okay, but that's actually worth thinking about. So far, what I've heard from the cynical aisle, not the skeptical aisle, the cynical aisle, is that what I have isn't valuable and I should abandon it because of this, that. I'm like, well, I've looked at this, that. I don't buy it. So come again. So do I value truth? I believe I value truth. I would like to think I value truth. Am I blinded by biases? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. Maybe that's why they call it a blind side. But I'd like to think I'm open-minded enough to hold ideas and look at them. Now, at the end of the day, we're going to settle somewhere. And as far as I know, like, how do you know that you? I'm going to say you, but I kind of mean in general. How do you know that because now that you're an atheist, that now you go, okay, well, now my identity is now in this because I abandoned this. Now I'm tied to this, and now I'm going to double down on this. And so now I don't want to hear what I used to hear because I've been there, done that, and it's not worth considering. And unless you convince me that it's worth my time to listen and reassess and reweigh, I ain't going to hear that. So you can play that on both sides. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say that my identity is in atheism the same way that I used to say that my identity is in Christ. I just say atheism, depending on how you define it, is true of me. It's something that's true of me. But to that point, somebody else, wait a minute, what? Thank you for the $5 super chat. Wait a minute, what says Damien's very polite, but his arguments could work for other religions too. And the entire time I was sitting here thinking of how to phrase that, but it never came up. But many of the things that you were saying, like what makes, well, no, I'll just let you respond. That's the comment that this person left. What do you say to that?
Oh, that is a good question. That basically goes back to the fundamental of why am I a Christian and not a Muslim or a Buddhist or what have you, right? So, that's a really good question that I would like. I fear that no matter what answer I give, it will feel inadequate. Does that make sense?
I respect it. No, I respect that. Yeah.
The reason is because I'm just like, well, the bottom line is I believe what has been said about Jesus. I just believe that. And so then because I believe that, when I validate other things in light of that, you could say these arguments work for other religions too. We could have that debate. That would take forever. Well, let's pick Buddhism. Let's track with it. Is it saying the same thing? Does it aim for the same things? Does it give you the same result? Blah, blah, blah. You could go through that. We'd be here forever. So theoretically, could my arguments work for other religions? Maybe, but that sounds more like, I'm trying to find the right word. Like a specious argument. It's like maybe, possible, likely, probably not. So,
well, if I could add a little more meat to what wait a minute, what is saying.
Okay.
I think it's true in this sense.
Okay.
Could every one of your arguments work for another religion? Not specifically because it's a specific religion. There's certain things that Buddhism is not going to try to answer because it didn't come up with that problem.
Right.
Christianity has come up with a specific problem, and so it's got a solution for that. So in your explanation, you would get to a point where you'd say, aha, but does Buddhism solve the sin problem, or does it solve that problem? But it came up with different problems, and it's got a solution for those. Now, once you get outside of that, then you could say the same thing for that. Well, the person who's practicing that, they've talked to the Buddha, or they've talked to, the great consciousness, or they've talked to, became one with themselves, or whatever they did, and it gave them peace, and it worked, and they can't explain their lives without it. Like you said about you and the Lord, some of those same arguments could work, even though the specifics would not work because the different religions have different problems that they've come up with to solve.
Yeah. So where I'm at with that question is I can't put words to it right now, but something deep inside of me says, I don't know why that sounds wrong, but I don't think that's right. But I don't have a convincing rationale without more time. So I'll just let them win. I'll be like, okay, fine. We'll see.
Well, it's not about winning. It's just, it's a question that it's one of those shelf questions. You know what I mean?
Well, because I guess where I come from in this is like, I think sin is a real problem. I think evil in this world is a real problem. I think justice is a real issue. And other religions don't care about that, or insufficiently answer those questions. And so for me, it's like, could my arguments work for other religions? Only so far as superficial similarities. But when you get down to the brass tacks of the fundamental differences, no, they don't work the same because they're not at all the same. So,
well, that's why I said it's not this specific argument. So, for instance, Buddhism, right? You said Buddhism, they would say the cause of suffering is desire.
Exactly.
And so, through the practice of meditating, you rid yourself of desires. But it's their way of addressing what is sin. Sin is inappropriate desires, and so you're going to find ways to deal with it.
To become an impersonality. So where the argument,
but so does the Christian. No. So does the Christian. Yeah, no, what are you doing? You have to die to yourself. It's no longer I that live, but Christ that lives in me. That's yes, you're not you anymore.
You're going through death into life. So it's
life.
Right, but that makes you more alive, more you. Like
alive in Christ. You die daily. You take up your cross and die daily.
But here's how, okay, so I don't think that paradigm is talking about personality. I think it's talking about will. So that's probably where we would just get into a mushy discussion here.
All right? I'm saying is the different religions are really doing the same things, just in their unique ways.
But are they succeeding? I think that's where I'd be like,
so
maybe.
Have you ever spent time at a Buddhist colony?
Not a colony. No.
I guarantee you they don't have anywhere near the kind of problems you have in a church circle. Matter of fact, you talked about one of your deconstructions was because of the issues you ran into with church people. You would not find that at most Buddhist colonies.
You really think so? Like, do you know this from personal experience? You're just guessing.
I know this from Buddhist people who they from people who've deconverted from Christianity and studied Buddhism.
Interesting. Well,
two of them have been on this podcast before.
Interesting. Well, so I would just say, you know what? I actually haven't even thought about it. I haven't considered it. I do wonder if my resistance is just like, yeah, I'm curious. I wonder if it's a self-preservation thing. I wonder if it's an emotional thing. I wonder if it's, I like my camp and I don't want to think about it. Could be. Or maybe there's something deeper. I don't know. I'll have to.
All of this is just things that are worth thinking about. Yeah. But we're at 2 hours now, and I want to try to keep it at 2 hours and not too much over. Would you come back? Would you, like, we can shoot some messages? Everybody I've ever had on, the conversation keeps going offline. So we can keep the conversation going, and then we can come back and do another episode if you want.
We absolutely can.
But everyone in the chat,
I just have a quick question.
They love you. I like Damien. He's honest. They're loving you in the chat, man. But go ahead.
Thank you. I do have one question. My goal today was to at least, I wanted to come here and not talk like a Christian. I wanted to talk about, I wanted to know my topic so well that I didn't have to use religious language. I wanted to be able to be generous in thinking and listen as much as I talked. And I wanted to convey that I am faithful to God and the scriptures and Jesus, loyalty.
You did a great job.
But I'm not willing to
do
that at the expense of somebody else's personhood. Does that make sense?
You did a great job. Everything you just said, you did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I would love to come back. You've made me feel very welcome. Thank you for that. I don't believe that one conversation is going to convince anybody of anything. Right. But I think that these conversations are worth pursuing. And I would definitely be down to show up again. And if you want to get into specific things like, okay, now we're not going to meander all over the globe. We're going to talk about this one issue.
Yeah. Maybe 2 or 3 issues and spend maybe a half hour on each. And we can do something like that. But we'll definitely keep the convo going because, like I said, I enjoyed this. Sure. And once again, I just want people to realize we're people doing people things. And I think you're not here in the States like I am. We're going through some we're going through some shit right now, man. Like
I have seen your post. I don't necessarily agree with your rhetoric, but I'm not there. And I know I have my particular political biases, and I'm the way I am. I think the way I think. But I know you guys are going some stuff. But it's not Canada. But Canada, we have our own issues.
Gotcha. Hey, well, I'm gonna let you go, man. Go ahead and enjoy your night. Hey, everybody in the chat, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like this episode. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. You can join the Patreons by clicking on the link that's underneath the video. If it's not there now, it will be there by the time you hear it if you're not watching it live. But definitely, thank you guys for tuning in. Remember, Wednesday night, we are going to come back, me and a panel of hosts, a panel of guests talking about Black Christians and the rhetoric of Charlie Kirk. It's going to be a great episode. Can't wait to see you guys Wednesday. So till then, much love. Have a great night, everyone. Once again, Damien, peace to you, man. We'll see you back soon.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
Yeah.